All right, so get ready for a deep dive today into some of China's biggest, boldest projects.
That's right, we're talking mega projects.
We're using this document called documento.txt.
Right.
And it's got all the details on these massive undertakings. And, China's building on a scale
Incredible.
that most of the world can only really dream of. So we're not just going to look at the wow factor. We're going to dig into what these projects tell us about China's place in the world, their ambitions for the future.
Absolutely, and I think that's key here. These aren't just construction projects. These are strategic moves by China, signaling their intention to be a dominant force in this century.
Yeah, and I think to start, it's good to pick something everyone can easily imagine, right?
Yeah.
We're looking at skyscrapers, right?
Yeah.
Like, take the Shanghai Tower. I mean, it's not just tall. This thing is practically a vertical city.
Yeah, it's immense.
Over 20,000 glass panels.
Mm.
And what's interesting is that twisted design, it's not just for aesthetics.
It's functional.
Yeah.
That twist is actually really important. It helps the tower withstand the incredible force of wind at those heights. And beyond just, it's an architectural marvel, but it represents, I think, something really crucial about how China approaches these projects.
What's that?
They're playing the long game. Just to get this project, just to break ground on this, it took 15 years.
15 years.
Of planning and approvals.
Wow. Talk about commitment to an idea. It makes you think, what else is in the works? What are they planning for decades down the line?
Right, exactly.
And speaking of grand scale, let's move from a vertical city to something more sprawling.
Okay.
How about an airport? The Beijing Capital International Airport.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Whoa.
Now, the Beijing airport, I think, highlights China's awareness of its growing global influence. They knew they needed an airport capable of handling just massive amounts of traffic, and not just for today, but for the future.
Yeah.
We're talking an airport that's had to be expanded 3 times already to keep up with demand, and it now accommodates a staggering 100 million passengers a year.
100 million.
Yeah.
Through one airport. It's hard to even fathom that kind of volume. It's almost like they're thinking about how to move populations on these huge scales. And it's not just about air travel either, right? What about this bridge, the Danyang-Kunshan Grand Bridge? This thing's so long you could drive on it for 2 hours straight.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
It just blows my mind.
And it's even crazier.
What?
It took them just 2 years to build it.
2 years?
Yeah, 2 years. And this isn't just about efficiency. It's about showcasing their mastery of doing these large-scale infrastructure projects. This bridge, it's part of a larger strategy, too.
Okay.
China's investing a huge amount of money into high-speed rail.
Right.
To connect its vast population more efficiently than just relying on air travel. It's a strategy with, I think, huge implications for how infrastructure is developed all over the world.
So they're really thinking about how people, how goods, how everything moves across their entire country. Land, air, you name it.
Yeah.
But it's not just about, building big. It seems like they're really also focused on efficiency. Like, take the Hongqiu transportation hub.
Oh, the Hongqiu hub.
Wow.
Now, that is a perfect example of what happens when China combines its infrastructure prowess with its need for efficient solutions.
Yeah, what's so special about it?
Picture this, okay? 1 million people moving seamlessly through a single hub every single day.
1 million.
Yeah. Bullet trains, maglev, a bustling airport, all interconnected.
It's like they took every single transportation headache you could imagine, the waiting, the lines, the delays,
All there, yeah.
and just engineered it all away.
That's the goal.
It's incredible. It's one thing to move people around like that, but you got to power all this stuff too, right? And it's not like they're shying away from renewable energy either. We touched on it briefly, but that Gansu wind farm,
Yeah.
we're talking about doubling its capacity. It's already the biggest one on the planet.
It really is a huge statement. It shows that they're recognizing the need to find a balance between their economic growth and environmental sustainability, right? I mean, doubling the capacity of that wind farm, it's a massive undertaking. But it speaks volumes about their commitment to becoming a leader, a world leader in renewable energy.
Yeah, but it's interesting to me because, wind power, it's not always reliable, right?
Yeah.
What happens when the wind dies down? How do they keep everything running?
That's where their focus on these interconnected energy grids and storage solutions comes into play.
Okay.
They're putting a ton of resources into research and development of things like advanced battery systems. Pumped hydro storage is another one.
Right.
It's all about creating this giant interconnected energy network that can, adapt to those fluctuations you're talking about when the wind's not blowing as hard.
So they're not just building wind farms. They're building the whole like support system around it too.
Exactly.
It's really fascinating. It's like they're playing, they're playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. They're thinking like 5, 10 moves ahead.
Right. And they're not putting all their eggs in one basket either. Wind is important, but they're also a huge player in solar energy.
Yeah, we see that.
I mean, they've got these massive solar farms. Some of them are even like floating on water
Floating.
to maximize space, make them as efficient as possible.
Wow. That's amazing. But okay, we've got to be real here for a second. They still rely heavily on coal, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's got a pretty hefty environmental impact.
That's true. And it's a tough situation. They're trying to navigate this transition, right?
Right.
Meeting their growing energy demands, but trying to do it in a way that minimizes their carbon footprint. It's a real balancing act.
It really is. It's like walking a tightrope,
Yeah.
trying to keep the economy going while also being responsible for the planet.
It's a global issue. And honestly, the whole world is watching how they handle it.
Yeah, makes sense. But, we've talked a lot about the practical side of things. I'm also fascinated by how these projects reflect their identity, their
Yeah.
culture. Like, take the Beijing National Stadium, the bird's nest, they call it.
Yeah, beautiful structure.
It's an incredible feat of engineering, but it's also a really powerful symbol of, like, new beginnings.
It absolutely is. And hosting the 2008 Olympics there, that was a deliberate choice.
Yeah.
It was about showcasing their arrival, saying to the world, hey, we're here. We're a force to be reckoned with. And they did it with a structure that so perfectly, embodies their cultural heritage.
You can't look at that and not think about China.
Hmm.
And it's not just modern stuff either. You see this connection between their architecture and their identity going way back. I mean, look at the Temple of Heaven.
Yeah.
That circular shape, all those tiered levels, it reflects their ancient beliefs about the universe, the cosmos.
It's true, that link between their architecture, the symbolism, it's also deeply ingrained in their history. And we see it in the old structures and in these modern marvels that they're building. I mean, take the Guangzhou Opera House.
Oh, yeah, that's another good one.
That flowing design, it almost looks organic. It's a beautiful representation of the Pearl River. It's like they're blending the natural world with human creation.
Yeah, yeah. It's really incredible. And it's like they're telling stories of these buildings, like creating this dialogue between the past and the present and the future all at the same time.
Right. It's a conversation in a way.
And speaking of the future, we've got to talk about this floating stadium concept.
Oh, yeah. That's a bold one.
That lotus flower design.
Yeah.
I mean, if they can pull it off, I mean, the engineering of it would be a feat. But that symbolism, too.
Powerful.
It really speaks to some of their core values.
Yeah.
Right?
Imagine that. The stadium looking like it's just floating on water. These petal-like structures, reaching up to the sky. And the lotus flower, I mean, it represents purity, harmony. It's a deeply meaningful symbol in Chinese culture.
Yeah.
It would be a really, really striking statement.
Absolutely. But, okay, with all this ambition, I mean, there's got to be challenges too, right? I mean, we're talking about huge financial risks, the potential environmental impact. There's got to be skepticism from the rest of the world.
Oh, absolutely. You're right to point that out. I mean, there are definitely people who argue that, the cost of these mega projects outweighs the benefits. They point to potential environmental damage, communities being displaced. They say it puts a strain on global resources.
Right. It's like they're making a huge bet, and not everyone's convinced it's going to pay off.
That's fair to say.
So how does China respond to that? I mean, are they even listening to those criticisms?
They are. They've started implementing stricter environmental regulations, for example, investing a lot in mitigation efforts to offset the impact of the construction. And they really play up the long-term economic benefits they believe these projects will bring, not just for China, but, for the whole world.
So trying to find that balance again, showing the world they're listening, but also not letting it stop them from pursuing this vision they have. It's a tough needle to thread, that's for sure. Balancing those big ambitions with the real impact these projects have on, on people, on the planet.
Speaking of ambition, we can't wrap this up without talking about the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge, right?
Right, yeah.
I mean, the world's longest sea crossing. It's not just a
Wow.
bridge. It's like, it's a statement.
Yeah, for sure. The Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge is it's a prime example of how China's using these projects to flex its engineering muscles.
Yeah.
Think about it. We're talking treacherous ocean currents.
Yeah.
You've got to coordinate construction across multiple different, areas and jurisdictions. And then on top of that, they built a 6.7-kilometer underwater tunnel.
It's
It's
unbelievable.
mind-blowing. And they built artificial islands just to support parts of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's wild. And you mentioned the whole coordinating with different regions, different governments. That's interesting too.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just, a feat of engineering. It's also a huge political project and an economic project all at the same time.
Absolutely. And I think, that's really important to remember. This bridge, it's not just about connecting three cities, right? It's
Yeah.
about weaving those cities into this mega economic hub. Think Silicon Valley, but on a much larger scale.
Yeah.
A center for innovation and growth that uses the strengths of each of those cities.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, it's that long game we keep talking about, thinking decades in advance.
Police.
But with all this, the infrastructure, the economies we've been discussing, it's also important to think about the people, right?
Right.
What does it mean for everyday people? How do these projects change their lives, not just in China, but globally?
That's the question, isn't it? I mean, China's population, it's both its biggest strength and its biggest challenge. You know what I mean? You have this huge workforce, this huge consumer base that's fueling this growth, but you also need to make sure everyone's benefiting from it, not just a select few.
So it's not just about these impressive buildings and bridges.
No.
It's got to be about creating opportunities, improving lives,
Mm.
making sure the progress lifts everybody up.
Yeah, exactly. And in their defense, they are taking steps in that direction. They've put social programs in place, investing heavily in education and healthcare, and they're trying to close that gap we see between, the urban areas and the rural communities.
Yeah, it's a work in progress,
Yep.
as it is with any country that's going through such rapid change and development.
Of course.
They've achieved incredible things in a short amount of time, but there are still huge challenges ahead.
Oh, absolutely. Finding that right balance, like we've been talking about, it's crucial. But one thing is certain, whether you look at it all with awe, or maybe you're a little more cautious about it, you can't deny that what they're doing is changing things. It's a powerful reminder, I think, that we're living in a time of just unprecedented change, and China's right there at the forefront of it all.
Well, on that note, I think that's about all the time we have for our look into China's megaprojects. Hopefully this has given everyone listening a better understanding of these massive undertakings
Yeah.
and the impact they're having, not just within China's borders, but all over the world.
It's a fascinating story, one that I think we're going to see unfold for many years to come.
Absolutely. And until next time, keep asking questions, and we'll see you on our next deep dive.